Here in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has been given 6 weeks to address rising insecurity or face the possibility of impeachment. That ultimatum comes from the minority caucus in the Senate, and it comes just days after Mr. Buhari himself was threatened by kidnappers in a viral video. 24 hours after that was released, his presidential guard was attacked near Buhari, around 20 kilometers from the capital, Abuja. So just how serious are these threats, and how big of an impact could the minority caucus have on the president? Well, to help answer those questions, I'm joined now by Arise's political editor and director of news, Sumner Sambo. Good to see you, mate.
Thank you so much.
Tell us what has led to this ultimatum to President Buhari by the Senate Minority Caucus.
Well, the challenges of insecurity is rising across the country. The president had even previously appealed to the media to see how they can try to manage the reporting of the issues, because he's working hard to tackle the security challenges facing the country. But unfortunately, it spiraled and it's just closed door, to Aso Rock, the seat of the presidency. And of course, a lot of federal lawmakers are unhappy about this development, especially those in the minority, and of course, even some of them in the governing All Progressives Congress. And of course, there's a threat now to the president. Now, we've seen this previously, even in the president's first time, but this time around, a lot of the APC senators didn't come out to voice it, but after plenary I spoke with them, they were actually in support, but it's just that they weren't in support of the minority senators for staging a walkout.
Right, because I don't mean to interrupt you, I was going to ask you, is this likely to be a bipartisan affair, or is it purely coming from the opposition?
Well, the minority may eventually walk towards a bipartisan affair, because a lot of the federal lawmakers I've spoken with told me personally that it's difficult for them to get back to their constituencies between now and September 28th, when the campaigns are supposed to start. Those who have got tickets are finding it very difficult to get back to their localities, constituencies, to begin campaigns because of issues of insecurity. So that means everyone, irrespective of political party, is affected. And as such, President Buhari has to wake up. The governing party knows that it's a very big challenge, and of course, though some of them are not voicing it, but if indeed the motion is properly couched in such a way that it's nationalistic in outlook, they'll have no choice than to support the minority senators who move this. And I also try to sample the views of some of the House of Representative members, if indeed they were in sync with the senators, because it's two-house federal legislature that we actually run. And since that's the case, the Senate cannot go it alone. Even if all the senators say they are going to go it alone, it will be difficult without having the House of Rep members. So some of them said, yeah, they've been raising these issues. Just yesterday, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps said it, that 44 intelligence information was offered by the Department of State Service to security services on the issues of curtailing certain attacks within the nation's capital, Abuja, and many of them were not treated. And so it spiraled beyond control, with a captain being killed and 2 soldiers within the elite brigade of guards, which protects the president. Don't forget, just 2 weeks ago, the president's convoy was targeted in the northwestern state of Katsina, the president's home state. So, how much closer can it get? That's what they're saying.
Some people have made the argument defensively, as people usually do, that you've had presidents even assassinated in the United States, and therefore that there is no cause for particular alarm. Nevertheless, the international community are watching, Nigerians are watching. This particular program has a large international audience, and the question is being asked, why has insecurity deepened and concern heightened so much in the last few weeks? Because, as you said, there are now threats to kidnap the president himself.
Yeah, of course, that threat is just one that the terrorists themselves were just trying to make the headlines with. Actually, it's pretty difficult to get very, very close to the Nigerian president, but that's not to say that it can't actually happen. But in this instance, the issues of insecurity have spiraled, looking almost like beyond the control of the military, because there's a lot of issues of accountability in the military when it has to do with funds being budgeted. Even the president had in a statement just 2 days ago said everything that needs to be done in terms of budgeting and then having cash backing for the budgets has been done. And he's surprised that the military seems to be weakened at some point, but he's had to summon his service chiefs. They have meetings and all of that. He's been given assurances, but it's difficult. Now, the problem with Buhari is that he's had this challenge over the years in his government of always not wanting to fire people because they are very close to him, because he likes to give them a very long rope, giving them an opportunity to prove themselves. But I mean, this has become a very huge weakness. And just like a politician was telling me, yeah, for Buhari himself, it may not necessarily be a bad thing when he delegates powers and he wants that power to just go on. But for the sake of the country, it's become a big challenge. Don't forget, if anything happens to Nigeria with our population of over 200 million, it's going to affect not just West Africa, but of course the continent. And there's been a lot of security advice, but military assistance is one thing that this government was being urged to actually seek. But unfortunately, Buhari, being a former military general, thinks that the nation's security forces are capable of doing this, because he had done that as a young military general. He actually chased some bandits across the Chadian borders during the Second Republic. Former President Shehu Shagari was in power and all of that. So he thinks that, you know, there's nothing that's beyond the control. But of course, you know, the issues of corruption are there, the issues of accountability, and he's got to say the issues of lack of friendly nations that are able to provide arms and ammunition to us swiftly is affecting it. But if that's the case, then how about the recommendations made by both the House of Representatives? I mean, one of those recommendations was very explicit, Charles. They met with the National Intelligence Agency, the Directorate of Military Intelligence, and all other intelligence organizations, including the National Security Advisor, and they formed a well-known document that was submitted to the president by the House of Reps. But unfortunately, this
still
document
hasn't
hasn't
been
been implemented.
Right, okay.
So the question is, what's holding the president down?
And that's a very good question. But we've got about a minute or less. You are, of course, political editor, director of news. You know, you watch politics very closely. Do you see this hurting the ruling APC party in the upcoming election, perhaps up to the point that their candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will need to distance himself from the regime in order to have a relatively good chance of success?
Very quickly, Charles, this is coming too late. The main opposition does not have the capacity to rally around and get the 2/3 that's necessary for the impeachment process to begin, first of all. And then thirdly, as for the presidential candidate of the ruling party, yes, it's a big setback for him. It's beginning to look like it will affect his fortunes, but he's a strategist on his own part, and it's difficult for him to see. It's difficult to see him distancing himself from Buhari, because Buhari comes from a region that he is banking on a huge voter population from. So it's difficult to want to turn his back behind Buhari. So at this point in time, what needs to happen is for the governing party to have a critical strategic meeting.
Basically do something about insecurity.
Do something, because
right.
it's not about the votes this time around. It's if there's going to be an election in the midst of this insecurity, because it happened in 2015, the elections had to be shifted. And if care is not taken with the way it's going, and if it gets home to the presidency and something happens to the president, to the vice president, I can tell you that the intelligence community is very, 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 very taken aback as to what may happen, because we may not even have a nation.
Okay.
Talk more of elections.
Well, hopefully it won't get to that point, but thank you very much indeed, Sumner. That is Arise political editor and director of news, Sumner Sam.